Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Today, we are in a yet another interesting discussion, and I'm your host, Vandana Verma. Today, the special person is Jay Hira. He's a very long old friend. We used to work together in one of the multinational companies, and since then, we've shifted companies to countries and whatnot. And today, he's here to speak about a lot of things which you'll listen in this episode. So, over to you, Jay. We want to know more about you. Like, I know you, but I'm sure everyone wants to know you.
Okay, great to be here. Thank you for this opportunity, Vandana. Maybe if we could start off with, introducing ourselves. So I'm Jay Hira. I work in cybersecurity. I've got about 15 years of experience in this discipline of cybersecurity. So if I was to kick off, my journey as an individual can be summarized into three simple phases, starting out from being an average student with big dreams to a defining moment in my life where I understood the importance of putting hard work behind my dreams. And finally, reflections as an old man that I am today on how collaboration and teamwork are the secret sauce for happiness and success in your career and your life. Now, let me expand that a bit more. As a teen, my fascination for computers came from spending most of my summer school holidays at my uncle's computer hardware store. It was at this store that I learned how to assemble desktop computers, and it was this very store which gave birth to my dreams of working in the discipline of computers. Now, if only dreaming was enough. I was an average student, like I said, and through my schooling, somehow I managed to go from an average student to below average at the time when it really mattered, which was year 12. And Vandana, you'd be able to relate to this, how year 12 results influence heavily on what subjects you can and what subjects you can't really opt as majors at university. I still clearly remember this defining moment in my life when I was 18. I was sitting down in the dean's office with my father by my side. I'd secured admission to mechanical engineering. My father clearly knew where my passion was. So he, out of curiosity, asked the dean a question. What are my son's chances of switching to computer science? And to this, the dean laughingly responds, realistically, zero, mister. Look at his track record. It is completely shit. Now, this was the moment that helped me realize that merely dreaming wasn't enough unless you put in the hard work to turn your dreams into reality. Motivated to change my situation, I studied hard, topped at the university in my first year, and was offered to switch to computer science. And after completing my bachelor's degree, I went on to pursue masters in network technology and IT infrastructure. Since then, in my professional life, I've almost cherry picked every single role that I've had to work across different disciplines in cybersecurity, from attack to defense to architecture to strategy, so on and so forth. The aim has always been to learn something new with every job. Fast forward to 2020, a very different time where we all had to adapt to almost a new way of living and working. This extra personal time has helped me reflect on my journey so far and has me realize that the most fulfilling experiences that I've had in my journey and my life have been those where I've collaborated in teams to solve problems and in the process be a part of helping my team, helping my employer, or helping my customers to achieve success. Now, if I was to quickly summarize everything that I just said into two lessons that I've learned from my life, they'd be dreaming isn't, dreaming big isn't enough unless you put hard work behind your dreams to make them come true. The second lesson is happiness isn't a byproduct of your own achievements and your own successes. Happiness is an outcome of working together in teams and achieving success. And that is what will make your journey really worthwhile. And if you'd asked me what would my top two or top three characteristics be, number one, you picked it up, attitude over skills any single day. I strongly believe that a can do attitude actually makes you so much more adaptable and makes you so much more motivated, and you're so much more open to learning new skills. Whereas I feel like skills can be acquired through training, through exposure, through work experience, and which is why I'd always value attitude over skills. The other thing that are probably also a non-negotiable for me when it comes to hiring is resilience. That's one trait that I look for while hiring a team member. I truly believe that you learn more from your failures than from your successes. How you handle your failure and pick yourself up after those failures and continue to try is what resilience is all about. Like they said in boxing, it's not about how fast or how hard you throw your punches on your opponent. It boils down to how quick you lift yourself up after being knocked down. And that to me just resonates so well. So I feel attitude and resilience are my two non-negotiables. If there was an option to add one more, I'd look for dependability, but it's just so hard to gauge dependability in the interview process. And I'm sure you'd be able to relate to how most cyber leaders would be looking for dependability, but at the same time, there's no metric for you to measure dependability through questions. And it's more so if you have the right attitude, if you're resilient, then you're someone who can be coached into taking on more responsibility. So totally agree with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was just going to ask you one very important aspect. Specifically, if I talk about, let's go ahead and switch the gears. What is security innovation according to you? And maybe one or two things that we can think of from a security innovation perspective.
Okay, interesting. The very seed for any innovation is in the need to solve a problem that has never been solved before, or to improve the way in which a problem that probably has been solved before, but it's around how do we make a process more effective, or how do we make a tool more efficient. So that's essentially innovation. The difference that I'd like to call out between any innovation and security innovation is in the trigger, or what really causes it. So security innovation, the way I view it, has two triggers or need, so to speak. One, as we said, security innovation to solve a problem. The other need comes from catching up with the bad guys. And by that, I mean, in our security ecosystem, we have two foundational elements, attack and defense. And to simply put, in most cases, security innovation stems from catching up with the attackers. So if we take examples of security innovation that solve a problem, um, I grew up in the 90s, so I'm going to talk about an example from the 90s. 90s was when the World Wide Web was becoming publicly available on the internet. The challenge at the time was to leverage the internet for e-commerce. As the internet is an open network, which meant every transaction on it is visible to everyone on the network. So there were two problems to solve uh, to meet the challenge of bringing e-commerce to internet. One, hiding the transaction on this open network, just because, like I said, it's an open network, everyone can see everyone else's transaction. The second was to establish non-repudiation as a capability to ensure that nobody can refute from a committed transaction. That gave birth to security innovation in the form of SSL. You and me might laugh that SSL is deprecated, we moved to TLS, but back in those times, SSL was real innovation. The beauty of SSL is that it is completely transparent to the user, and most users wouldn't even notice that there is a secure link established between their web browser and the service, which could be amazon.com.au or any other service that they're leveraging to buy something for an e-commerce transaction. There is a presence of cryptography and digital certificates to achieve that feat, but it's so much hidden from the end user. The end user doesn't need to know anything about encryption or how digital certificates work or how do you establish non-repudiation. So that in my head has always stuck as security innovation that solves a problem. If we look at an example of security innovation where defense is playing catch up, risk-based authentication is the perfect example that comes to mind. In the current pandemic, we've seen how the opportunity for online scams and phishing attacks have been boosted. I read some astonishing stats the other day from Google that over 2 million phishing websites were detected in just 2020. Imagine. Risk-based authentication provides for the ideal balance between security and usability. And I think it's the one tool which helps you combat these phishing attacks, and which is where I think that's an innovation. But think of it this way: it's a catch-up innovation. There is phishing that exists. There is a lot of scamming, online scams that exist, which is where the need to have a risk-based authentication, and which is the reason why I was trying to break it down into two simple categories: innovation to solve a problem and innovation to stay ahead in the game, or maybe catch-up innovation when you're catching up with the bad guys. If I was to summarize, we're surrounded by security innovation, and the best security innovation is the one that is transparent to the user, like SSL. And that is the reason why it goes so unnoticed, that if you ask someone, what security innovation have you really seen? People would be like, oh, I don't know, just because the idea of security innovation is it's got to be transparent to the end user. Do you agree with these two ideas broadly around security innovation stemming from solving a problem and playing catch up? Or I'd love to hear your thoughts, Vandana, on this.
I totally agree, because security innovation is much more than just patents, just getting the things out there. It is more about understanding what is new, which is coming up. Especially if I talk about the research says that most of the issues that we are seeing are coming up with misconfigurations. We are talking about it. So we need to deal with that. Now, you talked about a very important aspect about phishing emails, right? Earlier, what we had layers of defense. Even we have seen where you have these many gates. Now, when you have these many gates, but if I give you the key, will you just tap the key and come in? Right? You will just key. It's like giving the key to the thief to come in. And that's when people started becoming more innovative, more thinking from a different perspective. Wherein now, if I'll say identities are taken very seriously. We've started talking about zero trust architecture. We have started talking about let's secure our identities first, maybe using multi-factor authentication to adaptive access, wherein we are trying to understand who the users are, talking about where they're coming from, what device they're using, what time they're logging in, and what's the pattern that they're using. And it's a totally different thinking where we never thought it can go in that direction. So now if I log in from my laptop every day, the system can recognize that this is my system. And if I change it to different laptop, it'll spike up the event. It might challenge me with multi-factor authentication, or it might alert you that, yes, this is something which is happening. So we have grown over the years, wherein technology has grown, our mindset has grown, because the hackers, the malicious people, like we are all hackers, but when malicious people have tendency of thinking out of the box. And trust me, what I feel is that the malicious people are the most laziest people, or hackers are the most lazy people. Now, why I say that? Because they always look for the simplest of things, and then they start chaining up the things. So if you think that you've left a small thing on the internet, that might become the biggest of the challenge. That has happened with the top companies. That has happened with the smallest of companies. So it is not like that I am a top company, I'm 100% secure. No, I've seen companies which are like top 5 companies to getting breached to the Fortune 500 to any company. So no company is 100% secure. And that's why we're coming up with different ideas, to different solutions, to different mindset. And cybersecurity is not just about people, process, or technology, but it's always about mindset as well. The way you think, the way you think ahead of time. And I totally agree with you, the way paradigms are changing. It is very, very important to get everyone together and think of out of the box things.
Yes, so much relate to it, Vandana. Thank you for your thoughts. I almost feel like most small and medium businesses start their journey to cybersecurity with aspirations to gain certifications such as ISO 27001. It could be PCI DSS if it's a standard, if they process credit card data. And we've heard this argument around compliance doesn't necessarily equate to security. I wanted to get your thoughts on the subject. In your view, do you believe that compliance equate to security?
Uh, so it's totally my opinion. Compliance doesn't equate to cybersecurity or security, because compliance actually can help security build really well. But what organizations or people have been taking it up as more of a checklist. Okay, these are the recommendations. If they are done, I'm fine. Rest everything is totally okay. But then the breach happens, and then they realize, oh, we had to do this as well. We had to do this as well. And compliance always have an asterisk in front of it, wherein this is fine. This is like the baseline, but then you have to go above and beyond it. Like we say, in a review, when you are going through your organization review or yearly review, that these are the baselines, these are your checkpoints that you have to do. But then if you go above and beyond that, you'll be outstanding. That's what with security. If you are just going through check and rest everything, you leave it at it, then what will happen? You never know. And I have seen that companies are spending a lot and lot on the tools, which actually are around security. But tools can't buy you security. You have to fine tune them. You have to
Right.
work on that. And when I talk about specifically compliance, talk about PCI. I've seen organizations, because I've worked with fintech organizations or the organization which deals with the PCI compliance. What they say, okay, let's do this. We have SSL, we have TLS, we are following OWASP top 10. I am part of OWASP, and I'm neck deep in OWASP. And I can say that OWASP is not just like following those top 10 bugs. Those top 10 bugs internally goes to many, many more bugs. So which means that it's so much more. And it is not just about checklist.
I agree with you completely. I tend to draw parallels to university education and using that as an indicator for success in the workforce. Now, there's no doubt whatsoever, in my mind at least, that university education provides a really great foundation for you to be successful in the workforce. However, the same isn't true that someone who doesn't have university education is not going to be successful in the workforce. They can still be successful in the workforce, and which is where I almost feel like its certifications and standards are lagging indicators. And why I say that is, if we again take the example of PCI DSS, like you just said, any PCI DSS review, by a QSA would be done at a level of testing controls at two different levels. One is test of design, whether the control has been designed appropriately. The second level is test of operating effectiveness. And what you're checking with test of operating effectiveness is artifacts which are backdated to see if the control has been operating effectively in the last 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months, or whatever, depending on the review. And that to me is a lagging indicator, because you're looking at your past success of controls. You're not really looking at whether my cybersecurity is going to be able to handle the future attacks. It's like looking in the past and saying that, yes, controls are designed appropriately and controls are operating effectively. But at the same time, nobody's going to put a pen to paper and say that this means you're never going to be breached. And which is where I think, to it's okay for small and medium businesses to aspire to gain these certifications and standards, but at the same time, they need to evolve further and look at other aspects of, focusing more on cyber resilience capabilities, focusing, then moving more or aligning better with businesses so that you're aligning. And like you were saying earlier, right, uh, being an enabler, security being an enabler for businesses rather than being looked at as someone who's trying to, be the blocker. So in order to change that perspective, you've got to constantly keep evolving how you work. I was listening to Women Speaks Cyber podcast probably a week ago, and one of my mentors was the guest on the podcast, and she said a line which completely resonates with me. She says, "You can't really be what you can't see, or you can't really aspire to be what you can't see." And the point that you made around, you leading the way in terms of getting at the top, getting on the board of OWASP, that in a way gives hope to, both men and women. I wouldn't just say women, but I guess the young girls at universities who haven't really seen a lot of women in cyber, or probably haven't seen women at the top of the food chain in cyber in terms of boards or, executives, they really thrive and flourish on the energy that they get when they see that, yes, Vandana has done it, and hats off to her. And I'd love to do it too, because if she can do it, I can do it. So like you said, I think that resonates with me. So I understand your purpose, Vandana. I think for me, my purpose is just three simple words. Like I said, make cyber simple. I'd love to make cybersecurity simple for students at universities that are transitioning into the workforce, to make this as a career attractive choice for them. I'd love to make cyber simple for small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses, boards, executives. Simple to the extent that a 12-year-old can relate to it. And that is my purpose, making cyber simple.
Amazing, amazing. I think we can go on and on for this conversation,
I
but
know,
here we
man.
have to, yeah, conclude. So thank you so much, Jay, for joining me today. It was wonderful speaking with you.
Likewise, and thank you for this opportunity to, switch seats in terms of turning from. There were times when I felt like I was the host and you were the guest, and then there were times where you switched back into control and switched gears, and then you became the, host, and I was the guest. So I enjoy that flexibility. I enjoy the model that we had, and I really enjoyed this candid conversation in terms of just talking through all of the topics that we really wanted to talk about or we're passionate about. So I'd love to do this again sometime, Vandana.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was amazing speaking with you. Thank you so much.